Raghuram Raju has been teaching philosophy for close to about 3 decades now, I guess. If not 3, I mean, it's close to 3. And among his many distinctions, so his research in the contemporary Indian philosophy is something which is like very, very sort of relevant and very useful for the current time. And he does justice to both the discipline of philosophy and the requirements of the society that we have in today's time. So he has written many books, and many of which relate to Gandhi. So one of this book is Debating Gandhi, a Reader, which was published in 2014. Another is Ramachandra Gandhi, The Man and His Philosophy. So, and he has also many journal papers, Gandhi and Gujarat and many other. And he keeps writing articles in the newspaper about Gandhi. So thank you, sir, for agreeing to speak, and we are looking forward to hear to your illuminating speech.
Yeah. Good evening, and thank you, Nisigandha, for this generous invitation. And I am very happy that Mr. Sri Krishna is also here. And one of the things that I realized very early in my life is that it is very important to model one's teacher. And that struck me, and that you will see even in the presentation. My teacher, whom I wanted to model after I left commerce and took to philosophy in 1978, was and will be Professor Ramachandra Gandhi. The reason why I say this at the outset is because he's trained in Western philosophy, analytical philosophy. He's a student of Sir Peter Strawson at Oxford. But then he's the only one in the entire gamut of philosophers from India who theorized on what he called as 7 sages of India. Nobody, no philosopher has theorized philosophically. It is one thing to praise somebody. You can praise Mahatma Gandhi, you can praise Ramana Maharshi, but he's the only one who has come up with a philosophical platform for launching these modern Indian writers who are entrenched deeply within national movement or even outside. That is a remarkable thing. Nobody else did it. This, I have said in some other place, is almost on par with what Badarayana did to Vedanta in Vedanta Sutras. That's the kind of elevation that I have with my teacher. Now, you know how difficult it is to model on somebody like him. So I'm like him, trained in Western philosophy, philosophy of science and political philosophy. But then he ended his career with philosophizing the contemporary Indian philosophers, but I almost began, taking that legacy. I don't think I am going to be a good model because I cannot match his creativity, his sense of humor, his height of imagination, and things like that. But then, as a humble attempt to be at the footsteps of one's teacher, this is my, this is what I did. So let me begin by making this very preliminary discussion. One is, today, when you go and read books, you have 2 models that are there. One is dominant, the other one is not so dominant. The dominant model is you understand thinkers as individuals. For instance, Gandhi as an individual, Tagore as an individual, Aurobindo as an individual, all these people as individuals. Okay, and that's only because it is only through this approaching them as individuals, you can praise them or you can criticize them. But I want to set aside that dominant thing. And I wanted to now try the other one, which is look at these people in relation to the other persons. So it is what I am interested in is to look at between or amongst. My term is not who is. I want to replace what is Gandhi by these two important terms, namely, what is the relationship between Gandhi and Tagore, or what is the relationship Gandhi, Tagore, and Ambedkar, or somebody else. So I wanted to replace to is by either between or by amongst. This is my strategy. So in today's presentation, I want to look at the relationship between M.K. Gandhi and Rabindranath Tagore within the background of Indian national movement. That's a very important thing for me. So I'm not interested in Tagore as a poet. I'm not interested in Gandhi, with his things that are outside this thing. I'm interested in, not that they did not do any good things there. They did very good things. In fact, Tagore is given Nobel Prize for his poetry, not for his politics. But then that's my area is the relationship, which is, as I said, between and amongst and entrenched into Indian national movement. So there are two traditions in India about the relationship between, and I wanted to look at the relationship between Tagore and Gandhi as a relationship between a guru and a shishya, as a teacher and a student. I'll explain, what I mean by this. So I'm interested in relation, and I'm interested in a particular kind of relation, namely teacher and a student. And now I wanted to introduce two kinds of relationship, the teacher and the student. One is the student seeks a teacher. Now you find, Bhimsen Joshi running away from, Dharwad and going to Calcutta in search of his teacher. So there is one dominant tendency where a student is seeking a teacher. But there is another tendency explicitly available in Shakta tradition where teacher is in search of a student. So I'm interested in this brand of teacher-student relationship, and I wanted to show that Tagore's relationship with Gandhi belongs to the second thing, and it is in line with Swami Vivekananda's relationship with Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, because Ramakrishna Paramahamsa also was looking for Vivekananda, or rather than the other way. So that is the another point that I wanted to make at the outset. So let me now present to you some details of what is the relationship between a teacher and a student. So what is the purpose of a teacher? What is the task before a teacher? The task before a teacher is to teach her students what the students do not know. So this is what we do in a class. This is a very basic kind of a thing where teacher knows more and student knows less, and the teacher who knows more will instruct students about what they do not know. It will be interesting as a thought experiment to envisage what kind of student Gandhi would have been if Tagore operated his role at this level. That means Tagore started teaching Gandhi, poetry, arts and, artisan kind of a thing, painting, music and things like that. Just it will be interesting to find out what kind of student Gandhi would have been. He would have become a poet, he would have become a musician, he would have become an artist, he would have become, he would have started another Santiniketan. Okay, but that's one part of basic, but one part of the purpose of a teacher training a student, keeping the Indian national movement in the background. So you are not going to teach, you are not going to train your student to learn what you know, but you want to train your students for an Indian national movement. So there is another purpose of a teacher that involves, training for a purpose in addition to teacher, or in cases in place of teacher. In training, merely teaching is not sufficient. It requires something more. There is a plus that is it demands. And unless we recognize this role of a teacher, there is a danger to misunderstand Tagore and his relationship with Gandhi. So that means that Tagore is not merely a teacher. Tagore is not merely a teacher, and Gandhi is not merely a student. What I mean by that, I'll tell you in a moment. Like a coach who trains the players, or a teacher who sets a tough question paper, in training, it is necessary to move from transmitting knowledge to exposing students to adverse ideas or conditions that they might face in the field. That means that it is not only one-way direction of, from teacher to the student, but teacher taking the student and turning the student 360 degrees, not only in, from one side to other, from also top to bottom. You know what I mean? This is the task of a teacher. That's what a coach may not be a good player, but then the job of a coach is to make the other person as a good player. And what is it? That not just to tell the student, play like this and all, but also expose them. If the other person plays like this, how should you, respond to that? So it is not only that what you know, but you should also know it involves the knowledge of the other person. The other person is a very paramount interest. And if you really want to play the role of a teacher to train your student to this, then it is not merely to transmit knowledge, but to expose students to adversities, like a coach or, does. This actually involves, in a philosophical terminology, of moving your students from actualities to converting potentialities in the student into actualities. That is the job of it. Somebody might ask, oh, why is it, if the coach says that, no, I should play like this, but will he play like me? You shouldn't ask that question, because that is not the job of a coach. The coach's job is to make you, do what he's supposed to do, not to, tally with himself or herself. This requires not only a higher cognitive competence. The teacher has to have a higher cognitive competence, but it also requires moral discipline. That means when you expose your students to adversaries, you are playing the role of a villain. You are playing the role of an opponent. Now, when you play a role of an opponent, there is a danger that your student might think that you are actually an opponent or you are actually a villain. So you have to be very, very clear. The teacher has to be clear with this, to distinguish between role playing and not taking the views seriously. And the student also should realize that my teacher is training me. He is not my opponent. In other words, I come to it in a moment, that when a teacher sets a very tough question paper for a student who is going to take a higher exam somewhere else, the intention of a teacher is not to harass the student. The intention of the teacher is to expose the student to kind of a difficult kind of situations, questions that might come in future. So this is what I call as a not merely teaching, but training. I make a conceptual distinction between teaching and training. Training is more important. It is actually 99% more difficult than merely teaching. What we do in classes is teaching. But what Tagore did with his student called Mahatma Gandhi is not just teaching, but training. And I have a feeling that one of the major achievements of India and major attributes of Rabindranath Tagore is that nobody performed this task like him. Nobody performed this task like him. And that's a very important contribution that one finds in Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore. The prospects of India, say, what is the context of this? The context, why do you need to train your student? Why do you need? The context of it was that there was the prospects of India getting freedom was very bleak during this time. When Indian National Congress, which met in Surat, the moderates were of the opinion that, as my teacher Ramchandra Gandhi says in his 7 Sages, they were very happy if India gets freedom after 250 years. You imagine the kind of hope people had. India getting freedom after 250 years. That is their realistic estimation. And then so it is against this gloomy context. Tagore called Gandhi Mahatma. Now, please look at the context. The context is that it is not that, India was doing very well. A freedom movement was at its zenith. Okay, and then Tagore called Gandhi Mahatma. India was not doing well. Freedom movement was at its lowest. It is at that time, during those difficult times, hopeless situations, Gandhi was called by Tagore Mahatma. What is the meaning of Mahatma? Mahatma means over personal self. Krishna Chandra Bhattacharya calls this as a over personal self, which actually means a Mahatma is a person who can never think about himself or others at an individual level, but always at the level of Atma. That's why Bhikkhu Parekh, in one of the fascinating chapters, he says, Indianizing autobiography, he says Gandhi did not call his Jivit Charitra as autobiography, but it is an Atma Katha. It's an Atma Katha. Atma is not an individual self in an Indian philosophical context. So activities of a Mahatma are not directed towards himself or herself. So prospectively, Gandhi, Tagore says of Gandhi, whom he called Mahatma, I quote, offer him the throne of all India, he will refuse to sit on it, but will sell his jewels and distribute the money among the needy. His soul is perpetually anxious to give, and he expects absolutely nothing in return, not even thanks. This is what Tagore says about Gandhi. And by way of a premonition, he also says, I quote, Gandhi is a liberated soul. If anyone strangles me, I shall be crying for help, but if Gandhi were strangled, I am sure he would not cry. He may laugh at his strangler, and if he has to die, he will die smiling. This is actually what has happened, when he was shot dead. Okay. Tagore called Gandhi Mahatma, and Mahatma enticed Tagore, who called him as a Mahatma, to lead him. And that's because when Tagore called Gandhi Mahatma, Gandhi immediately very quickly realized that he is yet not a Mahatma. So there is a difference between being called as Mahatma and becoming a Mahatma. So Gandhi seems to have said, if you want me to be Mahatma, you be my Guru. If you want me to be Mahatma, when I am not yet a Mahatma, you be my Guru. That's the reason why you find that the relationship between Gurudev and Mahatma has a very underlying significance. It is not a small incident of each one calling the other, formalities. It has a very substantial kind of a substratum, which will remain in the world history as one of the foundational things which people will definitely revisit again and again. Okay, that's it. That is, Gandhi seems to have said, if you want me to be Mahatma for the purpose of freedom struggle, when I am not at Mahatma, then you be my Guru and lead me from the state of pre-Mahatma state to the state of Mahatma. So that's the reason why we call Tagore Gurudev, when actually we should be calling him in public domain as a Kavishwar, because he is a poet par excellence. But because of this particular thing, this is a very unique thing that I find in Tagore. Tagore accepted this responsibility and began discharging it. This involves, as I said, not only just telling him what to do, but also training him when something unexpected comes. Okay, how do you face the adversary? As I said, that's the kind of a thing which I already mentioned to you. So I want to understand the difference between Gandhi and Tagore as collected in a volume called Truth Called Them Differently, edited by R.K. Prabhu and Ravindra Kalkar, within the format of a teacher setting a tough question paper to the student. Okay, that's the format. That's the first thing that I want to tell you. I'll justify why I introduced this format. They follow the pattern of Gandhi saying something, and how does it present to us that Gandhi says something, his teacher will say exactly opposite. Not because he doesn't agree with him, but wanted to train him. Okay, it is in this sense that I wanted to look at some of the differences between Gandhi and Tagore. Gandhi called for non-cooperation. Gandhi's call for non-cooperation alleges Tagore is political asceticism and leads to exclusivism. He opposed it and favored cooperation. So Gandhi gave a call for non-cooperation, and then Tagore said, no, this is terribly wrong. You should not do it. This is negativism. This is exclusivism. You are destroying yourself. Actually, you should stand for cooperation. And then Tagore says that dark stars are isolated, but stars that are luminous belong to the eternal source of light. Unquote. And look at, this is a question paper. This is a question. Look at the answer by Gandhi, and you find that there is an ascendancy from question to the development that takes place, the personality development that takes place in this case. Gandhi says non-cooperation is not negative. There are two aspects to nirvana. Nirvana is a positive, which is there in Advaita. Nirvana is a negative, which is there in Buddhism. Tagore alleges Gandhi did not see the positive in the negative, namely the apparent negative non-cooperation has positive side that eluded the attention of his guru. So, and then he says, Gandhi says, India must learn to live before she can aspire to die for humanity. The mice which helplessly find themselves between the cat's teeth acquire no merit from their enforced sacrifice. So, this is a reply. You find that, there is a question that is placed before Gandhi, and this is how Gandhi answers. Let us take at the other difference. The other difference is very interesting. Other difference is that somebody informed Tagore that Gandhi claimed that Ram Manohar Rai would have been a great reformer and Lokmanya Tilak a great scholar if they had not to start with their handicap of having to think in English and transmit their thought chiefly in English. Contrasting these two with Chaitanya, Kabir, Nanak, Guru Govind Singh, Shivaji and Pratap, he claimed that these were great men than Ram Manohar Rai and Tilak. And Tagore was upset and angry when he heard that Gandhi called Raja Ram Manohar Rai a pygmy. Gandhi replied that Gurudev only heard and picked up this from the table talk and did not clarify and confirm the context of the statement, and he did not make that allegation directly. He added, on one occasion, however, at Cuttack, when somebody mentioned Roy as an example of one who is trained the highest culture with Western education, he did say that Gandhi was Roy was a pygmy compared to the unknown authors, say, of Upanishads. This contextual characterization is altogether different from looking upon Ram Manohar Rai as a pygmy. Further, Gandhi added that in comparison to Vedas and Upanishads, those like Gandhi are small in stature, and then added at the end that Ram Manohar Rai would be agreeing with Gandhi's characterization than with the support of Roy by Tagore. Now look at that. That something is said and many things are added later. The comparison is drawn, the facts are not validated, it's picked up from the gossip and things like that. So this is the second difference that I wanted to place before you. The third difference, there are many others, but I'll check up only with few, is that Gandhi gave a call to boycott and burn foreign goods. Tagore was totally opposed to this and concerns economic aspects and should be left to the experts in that area. Tagore found the burning of clothes to be unsuitable as a form of protest when there are several Indians who are without clothes and are shivering. So now you find that the Tagore, in these two statements, that this call Gandhi should not have given because it concerns the social scientist and then economic aspects. So economists should talk about it, not a politician like Gandhi. The other one is, why burn clothes when you have poor people, who do not have clothes, they're shivering. So give it to them. That is a kind of a reply. Now here I want to claim that Gandhi becomes more like a social scientist and like a politician. Okay, who cares? That's the kind of a thing. And look at, Tagore becomes like a social scientist or, like a politician. Now look at Gandhi's reply to this. Gandhi response to Tagore is in the following. I quote, burning my foreign clothes. In burning my foreign clothes, I burn my shame. I must refuse to insult the naked by giving them clothes they do not need instead of them work which they solely need. He wants to, and he also says that in giving this call, I want to release Sita, that is India, from Ravana. Now look at the use of metaphors. Sita, Ravana, burning clothes and all. Here, Gandhi is speaking like Gandhi the politician. He's speaking like a poet. He looks at his deployment of metaphors and use of language. This is an instance of teacher and student in Parakaya Pravesham. Now, in all these instances, it is necessary to decipher the ascending order of the student to catch the high level of question set by the teacher. So that's the point that I wanted to place before you. Now, it is not to be, I want to convert this difference into a training. This difference is like a training, and I wanted to look at it within the format of a teacher and a student, and a teacher training, not just teaching student. And I also want to look at specific instances within the format of a question paper and an answer. Okay. And then, it is a test for the students. So the question that I wanted to ask you is that I find in all these differences, there is the differences are not negotiated at a linear level. That I say something like in TV debate these days, nobody is talking to, nobody is debating with other. Everybody is shouting with each other. I mean, one insult. So I find, when they say it's a TV debate, somebody called me and said, why don't you come for a debate? I said, I don't find a debate there. So if you want me to shout there, then I will come and shout. Okay, that's a different matter. Now you find in this very interesting thing is the graph is going up. That means teacher is putting a tough question. When you say, we give a call for non-cooperation, you say, no, that's not correct. When you say, Roy is a pygmy, then you explain differently. When you say that, burn foreign clothes, again, you come up with an explanation. You find that if you follow the graph development, you find that the student is learning. The student is showing maturity. The student is developing. Now, the question that I wanted to ask is, should teacher be happy when the student answers a tough question set by him or her, or feel unhappy? If you see these differences within the format of a teacher and a student, question and answer, you will see the performance of the student giving gratification to his teacher. So this is where, you find Tagore contributing immensely. On the other hand, if you see them outside this format, then you will see these differences as quarrels between the two, like Kaka Sahib Kalekar, then Samay Chachu Bhattacharya, many of them, they saw it as these differences as quarrels between two individuals. They're not. I'll tell you why they are not. Somebody might say that you have superimposed from outside this teacher-student format, question and answer format, and then presenting it in a very artificial manner. I'll show you that this format that I have presented to you actually is available if you read the text that is available in the Truth Called Them Differently carefully. I have not superimposed this format, these two sub-formats, in understanding the relationship between Gandhi and Tagore. I, in fact, extracted these formats from this book. Okay. Now, what is the justification for bringing in the format of the relation between teacher and a student? Now, I find that the job of Tagore, Gurudev Tagore, was the job of a teacher, and specifically the job of a role player. Role player, that's the most important thing, and nobody played this role. Everybody took themselves seriously. Okay, like Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore. That is the great, great achievement of this great personality, And now let me just mention to you why I think that these two things, like teacher-student and a question and answer in the making of the Mahatma, are not external, imposed from outside by me, but internally extracted from the text. Tagore confessed that for him, differing from, I quote, Mahatma Gandhi in regard to any matter of principle or method is extremely distasteful to him. Here is a teacher who is saying, it is like, see, I set a very tough question paper to my student. Today, I shouted at my student, and I come back and say, I feel very sorry today. I am very unhappy. You know why you're unhappy? Suppose you really, did not like the student, then you'll be happy because you shouted at the student. But Tagore did like the student, but was role playing in differing. So this is the point that Tagore comes out. It is like a teacher coming back after setting a very big, very tough question paper, coming back and said, and God, please forgive me. I know this will, create, my students will be very unhappy, but my intention is not to make them happy, but to train them. This is something that, Tagore confessed. And then he says he's extremely distasteful and made his heart sink, I quote. In contrast, joining hands with Mahatma gave him joy. Tagore attributed his differences with Gandhi to, I quote, God's will that man's paths or endeavor shall be various, else why these differences of mentality, unquote. Gandhi, on the contrary, sees the entire debate about the relationship between Gurudev Tagore and himself, not as competition, but as complementary. But to this, I'll say that it is not just complementary, it is training. I characterized it as a training. The climax of this deep bond is evident during Tagore's trip to meet Gandhi, who was on fast unto death at Pune. There are two versions about this fast and death. Some people kind it good, and some people don't like it. I mean, it depends upon which political spectrum you are. But I'm not interested in that particular part here. But what I was interested in, what happened afterwards, when Gandhi took to fast unto death, everybody realized that he's going to die. Because, it's becoming very difficult. His body has become very frail. Doctor said, gave up hopes. And then Tagore rushed from Santiniketan to Pune to meet him. But, whatever has happened, that, the Gandhi broke the fast. And then on that day, Mahadev Desai, his secretary, went to Tagore and asked him to sing his poem from Gitanjali that Gandhi is fond of. Eklochelo or something like that. Which is I'm not very good at Bengali, so I don't know that kind of a thing. Tagore sang and later said that, I quote, in the presence of Mahatma, he had forgotten the meter that he set for his own poem, but sang it like never before. See, that is a kind of a mesmerizing effect each had on the other. Mesmerizing effect each had on this other. This is the foundation, the braid on which the differences were enacted with a noble purpose of making Gandhi a Mahatma. It is important to realize that the human contribution of Gurudev lies in discharging this very delicate and most wise and most required job that the condition at that time, the situation at that time forced on him. Imagine, now let me just ask this question. Imagine Gandhi without Tagore. Imagine Indian freedom struggle without this relationship between Gandhi and Tagore. Now get into counterfactuals. Just write, you can write a dissertation. What would have been Gandhi without Tagore? Not only Tagore, that's why I said not only between, but also amongst. That what would have been Tagore without even Harilal Gandhi? This is another article that I wrote for the Telegraph. Okay, where I find that I portrayed Harilal Gandhi as a teacher and Gandhi as a student. It might look a bit odd, but that's in fact, when I wrote that piece, I sent it to Professor Rajmohan Gandhi because I wanted to check with him whether it makes any sense, whether it hurt the feeling. He said, no, this is a good piece. So it's only after he endorsed that thing, I sent it for publication in that monthly column that I write for, Telegraph. So imagine Indian freedom struggle without this relationship. There is a need to recognize the fundamental role played by Gurudev in identifying his Shishya seeking his Guru and the ensuing rigorous training. That is what makes him not merely a Guru. He's not just a Guru. He's called as a Gurudev, a founder of Santaniketan, but produce an example of what is the nature of a training slavish India needs along with factoring world requirements. This is what makes him Gurudev. He's a Gurudev who ingeniously identified his Shishya, worked hard to convert potentialities into actualities, and in the making of and contributed to the making of Mahatma. This is how I begin to understand the differences between them within the frame of Guru Shishya and subsequently within the format of setting a tough question and answer. This is how India managed to get its freedom so that you can have modern institutions like IIMs and IITs who teach ideas from the modern West. Whether this will enable their graduates to succeed in managing people of India is a question that falls outside this presentation. Thank you very much for your patience, and I thank Nisigandha for this generous invitation to speak.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. I think floor is open for questions. If there are some questions, I think we can sort of take the discussion a little bit forward. Sir, any questions from you?
I'll ask later, ma'am. I'm just thinking because it's a very, how should I put it? It's a unique way of looking at the relationship, and I have many questions, but I'm unable to formulate it. So maybe somebody else can rescue me. I'm sure today I'm allowed to participate like a student. So
of course.
If you're going to cold call me, then I have no question. Somebody else can go. Balram is there. I can see Balram's name. Rajesh is there.
Yeah.
Maybe Nishi, can I?
Like to be a listener.
Nishi,
No,
can
I
I
have
come
some
in?
questions. Manish, Go ahead, Manish. Nishi, I'll
No,
ask later. Let Manish
I will
go.
come later. I have nothing. Since you
No,
said you
no,
would
no.
come later.
I'm not able to formulate it, but I will definitely ask because
Yeah.
Manish,
Professor
please go ahead.
Raghu
Manish.
has.
Okay. Professor Raghurama Raju, this is Manish Thakur here. It was nice hearing your lecture. I missed the first part. I joined midway, but I was listening to you and I was trying to compare that with whatever I had read earlier. Like we have this historian Sabyasachi Bhattacharya's book on the Gandhi-Tagore relationship. So I was just wondering, this is my again a half-baked thought that is it so? I mean, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi could do many things, and I'm only talking about here Hinduism because he was a practicing Hindu, and he did not look at Hinduism merely intellectually. Something I would say Raja Ram Mohan Rai would do. So that's why if you read Gandhi and the type of things he has said about Kashi Vishwanath Temple in Varanasi, the type of moral courage he has or he had displayed, critiquing some of the not only some of the practices of Hinduism like untouchability and all, but even the things like behavior of Pandas in Kashi Vishwanath Temple, the dirt and the squalor that those things that are there on the ghats of Ganges in Varanasi. So this is only a man like Gandhi could do. So I just wanted to. So this type of courage that Gandhi had displayed all through, and my reading is very limited. I have only read one book that National Book Trust had brought out long back, a collection of Gandhi's writings. What is Hinduism? So I just thought, just as some sort of ice breaking, while you have more pointed questions, your comments on that. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you very much for that reference to Sabyasachi Bhattacharya. I think what is important for me as a student of philosophy is the underlying clarity behind the courage that you refer to. Yes, he's a very courageous person, but I wanted to draw your attention that the courage is not a raw courage. There is a clarity in that behind that courage. So I would convert that courage, and as I identify the segments of the various elements of that courage and write an algorithm. This is what I did in the presentation. That the reason why I say this is that one of the unique things in the world, there are three unique things, that happened in 20th century. But one of the unique things is most of the national leaders also are vociferous writers. In the world, you have good writers than nationalist leaders. You have good politicians than the nationalist leaders. But you don't find this combination where there is a politician who is working deeply into the national freedom struggle, yet produced volumes. Gandhi's 100 volumes, Sri Aurobindo's 30, B.R. Ambedkar's 30, Swami Vivekananda 10. It's not a small thing. But having said that, what is important to know is that these are not authors. Make a distinction between authors and writers. These are writers who produced really uniquely something fantastic. It is our job to convert these writers into authors. And there is a lot of work that is waiting. This is the door shown to me by my teacher, Ramchandra Gandhi. That don't get into classical, either Western or Indian. Get is what is immediate to you. This is what Augustine, and this is what Plato did to Socrates. This is what Saint Augustine did to Christianity. This is what Nagarjuna and Dharmakirti did to Buddhism. And this is the job that we can do. My job is to, in that context, that see the clarity, concepts behind the action called courage. About Sabyasachi Bhattacharya, I think the problem is that book is a very updated version about the material, but the conclusion that he draws from this are very disappointing. I wish that the book is not published. Thank you.
Sir, I'll ask us a small question, but before that, I haven't read Sabyasachi Bhattacharya, so I can't comment on that. But when you do point out that these leaders were excellent writers, and then you have repeatedly said Gandhi is a politician. So I just wanted to bring your notice. Do you consider, because I'm not a professor, I'm not a teacher, I'm not somebody who has studied this subject as a subject. I'm just a person who's interested in, and Ramu was also my teacher, not formally, but we spent hours together. So one of the things I wanted to know is, do you believe that unless a human being is fully immersed in a subject, and that subject could be anything, and is utilizing the faculties or the powers of observation, of integration, correlation, conceptualization, unless that happens, the last power, that is the power to express, is elusive. Most people I find unable to express, and the lack of clarity is because the other four powers which I just mentioned happen to be developed in not equal proportions. So you're either able to observe, you're able to observe and correlate, you're able to observe, correlate, and integrate. Sometimes you're able to conceptualize but not do that. It's only when all this come together and the final power has to be developed, that ability to write comes. And those like Gandhiji and I think Gurudev and of course Sri Aurobindo, I think they were so focused and so pointed that that ability to conceptualize and write, the clarity was so sharp. They were able to write. This is my view, but I don't know what you would think of it. On Manish's thing about the clarity, about Gandhiji was able to say so many things about the ghats and all that. And you talked about courage, but I've studied Gandhi for a long time now, since I started working with more people-oriented jobs. That I found that beyond courage, there is one root emotion or root characteristics, or guna as we call in our Hindi language or Sanskrit, and that is fearlessness. Unless you are fearless, you can't be courageous. And fearlessness is something that is there or not there. And typically fearlessness also comes through clarity. I think Gandhiji, Sri Aurobindo, Gurudev, many of these people were fearless. That means even though they did not have the knowledge, they were seekers. And that seeking was fearless. They did not allow obstacles to stop them. And that's why I use the word fearless in a larger kind of a context than just physical courage. That was the second point. And to you, when you spoke about Gurudev as a teacher to Gandhi, I just cannot help but resonate with it completely. I think, but my question to you would be, and that's because you have studied this very deeply, is, we are talking philosophical. You have had the privilege of working with Ramu. So do you believe that this teacher-student relationship was something that Tagore did knowingly, or was it just divine grace? Or do you even consider that there's something called divine grace? Because, it's almost impossible for me to agree with you, or even Ramu for that matter, that this was, for example, Bapu was in touch with Sri Aurobindo. He was in touch with Ramana Maharshi. He never went to the ashram. And I did some research on why he did not go to the Ramana ashram, although he was in Tiruvannamalai. And someday, some other time, we will talk about it. And, So my question to you is, do you think this student-teacher relationship was, I could be your student and I know that you are my teacher. So Gurudev calling him Mahatma and Bapu saying, well, if you want me to be the Mahatma, be my teacher. To that extent, there was a connect of knowing that there is a teacher-student relationship. But I also studied Gurudev's responses, and I felt that there were many times when Gurudev actually disagreed with the approach, and that a teacher has the right and a student has the right, especially in non-scientific kind of endeavors where there are many avenues to it. So I just wanted to ask you again, the long and short of it is, do you think they actively played this role knowing that one is the student and the other is the teacher? Or do you think there was also some divine grace?
Thank you for asking these two questions. Let me take the second one first. I want to believe that they know this happening to each other very clearly. I'm a textist. I read this book carefully, and I quoted in the last about the differences that Tagore had, and then how painful these differences were. So, if these differences are differing from Mahatma, were not something that was something that created pain in him, why did he differ? Is a question that I asked for almost hours together, months together. I sat on this, I meditated on it, saying that how do I read this statement of Gurudev Tagore, saying that it is distasteful and it is painful to differ from what Gandhi said. Now, who is the person who would undergo this kind of a experience? Okay, a person who is only role playing will go through this kind of an experience. So it is from this I started reconstructing, picking up clues here and there and all that kind of a thing to find out to establish that both of them knew each other, or in the relationship between student and a teacher. And I have, as I said, I have evidence to, in support of this. And the reason why, another important thing is, it is easy to answer the question, or maybe easy to explain that Tagore calling Gandhi Mahatma. But what is enigmatic for me, without this presentation where I made this kind of a conjecture, is why did Gandhi call Gurudev, who is a Kavishwar, as Gurudev? How does it fit into the thing? And most importantly, how did the popular imagination accepted this characterization? Suppose, suppose Tagore is an ordinary poet. Yes, possible. He's not an ordinary poet. He's not a national poet. He's a noble laureate. And just leave Tagore and Gandhi aside for a moment. Look at how the popular imagination of the subcontinent received, consolidated, propagated this characterization. So it's for this reason I started retracing these kinds of things and try to look at the kind of a thing that has happened. So I wanted to claim that reading texts and activities naturally took me to believe that it is we did not know. But if you ask me, I will say they knew it very well. We are recognizing it now. In fact, Savishaji Bhattacharya doesn't even recognize that relation. He leaves it as a mere difference between these two. He doesn't read the passages that he has edited, where I just mentioned it to you. So that's my, maybe a very not a convincing answer, but something like this.
No, sir. These are not answers, or it was just a view I wanted, and
Yeah.
I do resonate with your larger flow of thoughts. So.
Can I can I just come in for a moment, because obviously I'm a Westerner, so I'm a student and follower of Sri Aurobindo, and I'm living here in Auroville and somehow involved in education. What I'm not clear about is that focusing on this teacher-student relation. Now, Aurobindo would say, everything is your teacher, everything is yoga. What the gentleman said just now, there is a divine element involved in it. What you're learning is not depending on one teacher. It's a complex story. Yeah, the time was complex. The influence was definitely there was a relation between them, but I'm not so. I'm not so assured. You might help me that is the particular element between the relation of Tagore and Mahatma Gandhi. That he influenced the factors, the complexity of that relation, and the way Tagore saw his way of the world and had his statement, and Mahatma Gandhi in a different way. They have a complex background. I don't believe it is just based in this dialogue. That is my...
Raghu, I will just take Dr. Jurgen's question, if you permit me. Dr. Jurgen, so I mean, you live in Auroville, so I'm sure you know Aurobindo and the Indian traditions, or the Sanatan Dharmic traditions. So from that point of view, we have this very, very unique concept, which we call the Upaguru, and you can have many Upagurus. Even the elements, the nature can be an Upaguru.
Right.
So when Raghu pointed out the relationship of Gurudev with Gandhiji, in my mind, I've never for 1 minute lost the fact that probably he was one of the Upagurus. And Upagurus, there is no limitation to the number of Upagurus. I mean, you could be learning, I mean, this is a learning situation. This situation is an Upaguru too. So that's how I look at it. But Raghu, if I've answered it wrongly, please go ahead.
Yeah,
thank you very much.
That's the thing. Yeah. See, that everybody is a teacher is fine. I accept it. But then, you see, finally, I have to have my degree. You know, there I cannot say that everybody is my teacher. Okay, so I'm saying that you need people will say the food is served, but I want to actually go and see what is the food that is served to me. So I am interested in the concrete instances. So I understand everybody is guru is good, but then I also wanted to eat one guru. I want to meet one guru, who is guru. So
that's not Sri Aurobindo, by the way. But anyhow, I'm listening. Yes.
Yeah. To come back to your first question, is to see, it is one thing to talk about philosophy and then, look at the subject deeply into it. And the other one is, this is not what I learned from my teacher. My teacher was not interested in just philosophy. He belonged to a different class of philosophers in the world. But there are philosophers who read, for instance, Hegel, or Plato or things like that. They will tell you every nook and corner of that particular scholar and be done with it. They get lost. Rightly so. There are others who will talk vaguely about things, not backed by text. My teacher is trained at Oxford, analytical philosophy, and he brings that analytical to understand the contemporary Indian writers. Now, you find that the form is Western or classical Indian, but the theme is not classical Indian or classical Western. It is a modern. Okay, so now the one model that I can draw is, see, if you actually look at Buddha's statements, and when you look at Nagarjuna's works on Buddha, you find that he has taken insights from Buddha. If you have left them like that, it wouldn't have become a philosophy. Or, what Saint Augustine and Saint Aquinas did to Christianity. So philosophy has the second job of taking things which are radical insights, creative insights, and building a scaffold and build a system. Now, it is possible that you are a originator of your ideas and you also are the system builder, like Hegel or Kant,
Yes.
or somebody else. But there is also another way of looking at things, that you have original ideas and you are not interested in building up a scaffold there. And there is somebody else who comes and builds a scaffold there. Now, this is a path which is open to me. It is the path open to Indian students by my teacher. And I'm not just saying it, because this is what I said it in the introduction to Sages. In my introduction.
So Raghu, I have a question here for you, which it is a question, but I'll put it as a premise because this is my premise. I have struggled with it. Ramu is not alive that I can go and check with him. Rajmohan is not a patch on Ramu. So I can't check with any of those people that I would have checked with. I mean, Ramu brought to bear a certain spirituality to his philosophy, and none of the others do. And so I have not, but I have tested it in my own heart. So I'm going to put this to you. Because of my relationship, many people ask me about why did he name that Atma Katha as my experiments with truth. And here's my premise for it, Raghu, and that was, I differ from you that Gandhi was a politician. He was not. In my own opinion, after I have studied him, well, not as deeply as you have, but whatever little I have, I think he was basically a very serious spiritual aspirant. Srimad Rajchandra was the spiritual guru. And the truth that he talks about is basically the supreme consciousness. The invariable, something that does not vary. If you define truth as something that does not vary, and in search of that truth, and we have the Vedantic traditions, we have Advaita philosophy, and so many things. But I think destiny propelled him into this Indian freedom movement. And again, today there is this debate going on, which is so powerful, that was Gandhi's non-violence responsible for India's freedom struggle, or there were so many others who contributed. And my view is absolutely everybody contributed. But let's not be very myopic. What Gandhi became an instrument for independence of not just India, that philosophy gave independence to a multiple other set of nations who were colonized. Had we gone by the violent method, those other nations would not have gotten. So it was a movement which we look very myopically from the Indian independence movement, but this was decolonizing of a large swathe of the world. Now, this gentleman was an instrument of the divine, and willy-nilly, whether he liked it or not, he was a part of this journey. Now, if you are a spiritual aspirant who is thrust into the politics of day-to-day struggles of Indian freedom struggle, the British, Nehru, Patel, Maulana Azad, their internecine problems, Motilal Nehru, etc., what will you do? Because when you take the principles of spirituality and you have to live a three-dimensional world, I think this experimenting on how to take those principles and apply them, because only unless you're absolutely clear, you can apply them without a problem. Those who are not clear, who are still students of spirituality, would have to experiment with how to apply, fail, apply, succeed. And probably that's why he chose my experiments with truth. Because if you flip to the back cover, it says, I have nothing new to say. Everything is as old as the trees on the mountains. That's because nothing he said was original. It's all there in our, in the Sanatanic Dharmic literature. I don't want to call it books or whatever you want to call it, because there are political ramifications and I may suddenly use a politically incorrect word and I'm being recorded, and I'm speaking this in my individual capacity, not as chair of IIM Calcutta. So I would like to underline that. So Raghu, this is what I see, that my experiments with truth is the struggle of a spiritual aspirant in how he applied it to the three-dimensional world and the struggles. And his non-violence that he talks about is not non-violence limited to physical non-violence. It is in its expansive definition. For example, if I need 2 chapatis, but I eat 5, that's violence. If I can do with 2 shirts, but I have 10, that's violence. I can have social violence, I can have emotional violence, I can have economic violence, I can have legal violence. He was talking about non-violence in its most expansive sense. And and I struggled with it, they make fun of Gandhi because they said that if somebody slaps you, you show the other cheek. Well, the trouble with most people is they don't read. This show the other cheek comes from the Bible, actually. And I get a feeling that if you take this literally, you'll fall flat. He was trying to tell you metaphorically that when you're walking on this razor's edge of spiritual applications to our three-dimensional life, which in Sanskrit we call Kshurasya Dhara, I get a feeling that what he was trying to say is when you're doing that kind of work, why 1 slap? You should be ready for 50 more. It's not 1, 2, 3. It may be 50 more. Be ready for more pain. Be ready for more tests. That's what he means probably by saying, show the other cheek. Be ready for it. So I wanted to ask you, Raghu, you had the privilege to be with my mama, one of the best teachers I ever had informally, over multiple coffees at Bengali market, Nathu Sweets. What do you think? Does this make, or am I completely wrong, or am I on the right line?
I agree with you. I also want to add to your statement that it is not only confined to India's freedom, but also enabling the freedom struggle across the world. I wanted to add to this saying that, in fact, Gandhi is remarkably distinct from other people because he not only wanted to liberate Indians and others from British Raj. In fact, he wanted to liberate English people from the British Raj. See, that's why he says that you are in a, look at this phrase, modern civilization is satanic civilization. Look at, that satanic is a religious term which he deploys to attack modernity that rejected religion. Now look at the deployment of metaphors by him. So he was not only saying, in fact, there are statements after statement, particularly in the book that is referred by Manish about this, Hinduism book published by National Book Trust, where he says that there is a continuity between Indians and pre-modern British people. And what is their enemy, their common enemy, including the British people and India's people's common enemy, is modernity. So this is a kind of, I would add that, it is not only merely a freedom struggle for India, but also enabling, as you rightly pointed out, freedom struggle for others, and also freedom, liberation for the British people who are under the, subjugation of modern Macaulayan.
Raghu, so I'll be a little more, I'll push the envelope a little bit more now, because we also have Dr. here who's from Auroville. My own premise, Raghu, is that you cannot compare Bapu. I mean, if for that one stupid and, crazy moment, if I was to put a scale and put the levels on who is where, I think Bapu would be at the lowest on the spiritual scale. Ramana Maharshi is, of course, completely right out there, Atma Sakshatkaram, self-realized. I think Aurobindo is much higher, in my view. Yes. The reason I'm saying that is, again, an amateurish statement. You're welcome to shoot me down. Is that the spiritually refined and those who have gone to that level and touched that particular essence, I have never found in their writings any need to either downplay or attack any other thought process. They are comfortable in their own expansive thoughts. So to be able to say that something is the enemy of something, I have never read that from spiritual masters. I've never read that. I think we are our own worst enemies is the maximum that a spiritual master has ever said to whatever little I have read. So would that premise of mine that Gandhi would be much lower on the spiritual scale than say Sri Aurobindo and Ramana Maharshi, how would you look at it? Because these are again my struggles, Raghu, and today there's this talk and I have this beautiful opportunity. Nishi has given me a chance to ask questions. So I'm asking. If I'm being cheeky, please forgive me. That's not my intention.
See, the scaling, evaluating them is not something that I have done. And so I will not be able to answer that question directly. But however, I would like to submit is that the underlying braid of Indian national movement is not mere politics. And the reason why I say this is that it is not fighting with weapons. It is actually fasting, protesting. You are putting your actual experience, not theory, not weapons, nothing instrumental, including the theory. So you are on a... Now, that particular tendency is what distinguishes India's politics from the rest.
No, Raghu, you'll have to talk about
can
this.
I just come in? Can I
just
come in? Because it's a little bit... Number one, you spoke about the pre-modern English people have not understood what it means. And number two, at the end, it was a bloody independence. Millions of people have been dead between East and West Pakistan. Hyderabad was occupied as a princely state with almost 200,000 people of dead. Gandhi was not happy about it. But as a matter of fact, the result was bloody. It was not a peaceful liberation. That is the opinion I have so far. That means you can correct me.
No, that's a fact, Doctor. My question to Raghu was slightly different. And that was, Raghu, and you are a person who talks, you have this background. So I would urge you, because there's this debate about, about using Gandhian principles of non-cooperation. And for example, I will pick a live situation right now. You take the farm laws in India, and the opposition is you saying that we are protesting, we are using Gandhian methods. But Raghu, Gandhiji would never have supported any non-cooperation movement which has selfishness as the underlying principle, or which causes immense pain to others. And those principles of non-cooperation that he talked about was against a colonizer. It was not against your own government, And to utilize Gandhiji's name today to make these, I would call them, there is so much inconvenience to so many people. They're just sitting there, they're violent. What they did when there was, what was that called? The Citizens Amendment Act came, how they opposed that. This is not Gandhi. This is completely un-Gandhi, And I read Gandhi, so non-cooperation, non-violence is absolutely bang on, but it is underlined with that it has to be done with non-selfish reasons.
Yeah, that's why he recalled several,
1942, he recalled the Quit India movement. A nation was marching. Most people would say, boss, it's too late. I'm not doing anything now. But it was, and that's what made me realize that he's a spiritual aspirant. Was he a political leader? He would have let it roll.
In fact, Gandhi's recalling the fast strikes is something that I'm working on now. And I'm finding that is a very interesting exercise. Why did he recall what he called? So this what is called, call to recall. So, that would actually will give us not just opinions and this kind of a thing, but actually give us a proper algorithm of the Indian national movement.
My own personal feeling is that the man was very arrogant in his own beliefs, that he could, in his spiritual journey, he could move the masses with his value systems. He could not move his own children. I mean, his spiritual touchstone for failure was his own son, Harilal. This is my view. I had debates and debates and debates on this with Ramu. I used to tell Ramu that when in the days I used to drink, I used to say cheers to my Kaka. I would say, Harilal Kaka, cheers to you. Let me have one more peg. You know, I mean, because here was a man who was probably Gandhi's first satyagraha. You know, and Gandhi, who was trying to experiment with his techniques. I mean, Ramu and I would sit at that coffee table in Nathu Sweets and I would discuss this because my mother has seen Harilal. Ramu was a 5-year-old. Harilal Kaka used to come to my house, my mother's house, and give her money to buy cigarettes, to buy bidi. You know? So I don't know if you've read the chapter in my mother's book only on Harilal Kaka. And that's the one which Sham Benedict took to make the movie My Father, Gandhi, My Father. You know?
Yeah.
So I know the pain that Harilal went through because I've heard my mother tell me, and I've heard my grandmother tell me, because it was their job to get him a new dhoti, a new kurta, a new dari. And here was Bapu trying to say, I'm father of the nation. He couldn't be a father to his own son. And then going around publicly saying that this man is the product of my lust. What kind of spirituality was that? I mean, that is true, I understand. But every truth, does it have to be uttered? I mean, so Raghu, I mean, I don't want to catch up bandwidth some other day because I see in you Ramu. And so I'm attracted to ask you questions which Ramu's gone. So sorry, doctor, I'm just sorry for chatting like this.
No, I
should apologize. There are 17 others on this show, and I should apologize for taking up the bandwidth.
I got Harilal Gandhi's biography translated into Telugu. So, you know, I did some work there.
I know this because it was my grandfather. Do you know this, that Gandhi, for all his secularism that people talk about, he was an ardent follower of Hinduism. It was Gandhi called my grandfather, Ramdas, sent him to Bombay to bring Harilal back, to convert him back to Hinduism. It was my grandfather who went there. Nobody talks about it. You know, and we talk about unity in diversity, but we forget the key word there is unity. It's not diversity. Without unity, even a house breaks up. You know, so this nation has gone a little crazy right now on this secular and versus, I don't know, we'll talk about some of
it. There's a good point, not on this show. Come to Auroville, we discuss it, yeah.
Oh, definitely, Jürgen. I live in Bangalore, so I'm much closer. I will tell Nisigandha will you get me Dr. Jürgen's connection details? And I would love to.
Yeah, there was just a group of CES people, Center for Education and Science Studies from Bangalore. They just came to Auroville, so there is a relation anyhow, but it's not the issue of today, sorry.
So Nishi, that's the homework for you. You'll have to connect me to Raghu sir also.
Of course.
I mean, this is so beautiful.
I'll have more Gandhi speakers on 15, sir.
No, you should have more Gandhi practitioners. There are enough speakers. That's the problem.
Okay.
There's enough people consultants.
Yeah, so it's the training that is required.
Exactly.
Not teaching, training, yeah.
No teaching. And I really enjoyed it. Of course, like, I don't know if I don't think many people have.
No, Nishi, you should ask others. Yeah, we've just taken up your bandwidth. I'm very, very sorry.
Okay. So any more questions from the audience? Seems like they were all enjoying the conversation. Me too. Like, I was just trying to sort of, locate everything in that context, like, how it happened, how is
I think
spiritual...
Shubrata wants to ask. I just saw him switch on his light.
If I may.
Yeah, of course, definitely, yes.
With the permission of the chair. Professor, thank you so much for that erudite exposition. I mean, as Professor Sri Krishna pointed out, that you sort of encouraged us to look at Gandhi-Tagore relationship in a new light. So I would very humbly put this question to you, sir, that when do you think this particular interaction between Tagore and Gandhi began? I mean, was there a fixed period when this teacher-student relation started, or was it a gradual evolution? That is question number one. And sir, in this context of teacher-student relationship, where would you be placing Mahatma Gandhi's activities in South Africa? Because I suppose that probably predates. Please forgive me if I'm wrong. So these are the two questions.
Yeah, thank you for asking those specific questions. See, the second one, South Africa is actually the qualification that Gandhi passed to be under the lens of Gurudev. See, Gurudev was closely watching what is happening. And then he was also, see, one of the important thing is the gaze of Gurudev is the most important contributing factor for Indian national movement. There are a lot of people who are very seriously fighting, they're sacrificing their life, all those things are happening. But, you need somebody to keep track of what is happening. Who needs what, where is something going wrong in this fight between the mighty empire. So some stock taking is important. You need an accountant kind of a thing. And in my reading, it is Gurudev who has performed the role of stock taking and balancing act for the Indian national movement. He is not the one who fought like Gandhiji or other people, but without him, all these things would fall into pieces. The reason why I say this is that in Surat, when Congress, Indian National Congress met, Tilak was no more. And, very soon Aurobindo will be implicated in the Chandanagar blast. And then Tagore himself was, getting more involved in poetry rather than in politics. So that was a kind of a situation. So this stock taking was done by him. Otherwise, you would have had a sporadic movements all over, but not the actual thing for the next coupling that you need for the next, to couple the two coaches. And it is at that time he saw that what Gandhi was doing in the South Africa. That is my answer to your second question. The first question is, there are no exact dates, but it was going on, in a very experimental way. Things are getting, Gandhi is not the only option for Tagore. In fact, Gandhi is a very, very far away person in South Africa. Okay, and he comes to meet Gurudev in the Santiniketan. That's a different matter. But Tagore was trying with other options too. Now, this is something that, we have to really revisit Tagore's biography, also revisit Tagore's, text and see that how is this this person managing this account, stock taking. And I tell you, I think, my hunch is the Kurukshetra war is not a big war. It is made to be a big war because of the epic by the poet. But Indian national movement is a big war. Big war, not just in India, but in the world. We are still waiting for, the Vyasa to write the epic of this thing. And that is the India that I find that this generation of students and teachers are not able to understand. We need to really come up with such a massive infrastructure for the world, not for partisan think of nationalism and things like that. In order to write an epic, it is an epic reality waiting for an epic writer. Whereas in Mahabharata, I may be blasphemous, but it is made an epic by the epic poet.
Right.
So in this context, you find that, the Tagore was playing the role. So he was, doing a lot of shopping all over the place. And then he is not only doing it, Professor Chowdhury, for Gandhi, he's also leaving it as a protocol for the next generation. Unfortunately, till today, we have not taken cognizance about this model. But I'm sure this will survive. This will endure. These models will be visited. These models will become the syllabus of the world institutions. If not today, someday. someday. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, sir.
Very much. Any more questions? But I think we'll have to close it. So really, thank you very much for, that elaborate discussion. I mean, it actually happened to be a discussion rather than a talk. And I mean, I was looking at every philosopher through your talk, starting from courage of Aristotle to public use of reason of Kant, everything was like, visible to me. And I agree a lot with, Sri Krishna Kulkarni sir that, Gandhi is actually a spiritualist. I mean, for me to believe that he's a political person is difficult, but I relate to this political part through the autobiography of Yogananda, where he says, if you are able and capable of doing something which no other person can do, I mean, why not? Sort of, so he, his own aim and aspiration was to sort of evolve, that as a spiritual being, to sort of, evolve as a being as per the, teachings of Indian philosophy. And that became his, the Karma Khetra is, that Indian national movement. So, I mean, I don't sort of see the discontinuity there. For me, it is all same. It's just, how he chose to actualize his potentials. And of course, like, the fact is that, there was Tagore, or maybe, I mean, whether as guru or as Sabaguru, that also doesn't matter, right? So, I mean, his teachings were influencing him, or the training that you said, the training that he was giving, that was it. So now we are in between that, the tradition of Gurukula, where the training was given for the character development and the kind of vocational training that we gave. And this is something, midway, where the training was happening in a manner which kind of matches so much with the Gurukul kind of thing. And of course, like, and it has so much implication on the life.
This reminds me, and I must share this, because my mother is now 92. My father just passed away, so I've been talking to her. And I would like to share this because Raghu bought this Guru Shishya thing, that he's probably right. And I'm saying this with some amount of seriousness. He's right. I mean, he's a student, but, my mother as a youngster wanted to study. So she went to Mahatma and she wanted to go to Shantiniketan. But he stopped her. He said, Gurudev is no more there. There is no need to go there. And then he said, you study in the ashram. Because when he was shot, Amma was 19. So Gopal and Rajmohan and Ramu were all 5, 6, 7 years old, that kind of, So they have known Gandhi theoretically. This lady lived with him, walked with him, talked with him. So I asked her that, well, how did you get your education? And at that time, this was Gandhi's arrogance. He would not allow his own people to be educated. He prevented Harilal from education. But Madan Mohan Malviya was there and he said, ye ladki mujhe de do. That's how she went to Kashi. So probably Raghu is on, his vector is in the right direction, actually. I'm kind of convinced that it is. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you so much, and thanks, sir, for being able to attend in a very short notice. And thank you, everybody, for attending. Thank you, sir. And we'll be in touch, and we will hopefully have more such offline discussions very soon when it reopens. And sir, Uttam Sarkar sir is here. So
Uttamda should say something. Uttamda is there.
Yeah.
He's always the quiet teacher.
Yeah. Unfortunately, so while attending the talk, I still had to do some office work as well. So that was the reason I had to keep my video off, which I normally don't do. I had very little choice, but I thoroughly enjoyed the discussion. I could concentrate on most of it. Thank you, Professor. It's a wonderful talk. And also Chairman Sir's this questions raised. I did a little bit of Gandhi and various contexts, autography and few other things. So it's very interesting and relevant questions you asked. Very interesting, insightful. And
thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Relationship with Tagore, Aurobindo, everything is very, very interesting.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Thanks. Thank you.